There are 3 crucial parts of every Ironmon run that you need to go just right, or at least 2 of them for you to win. You need good moves, you need good abilities, both of which we've covered a tier list for. The last one, you need a good Mon. I'm talking right typing, the right stats, and the right distribution of stats. So today's tier list, we're going to be looking at every one of the final evolution Pokemon in the game and which ones are at the top and the bottom in terms of what you should be looking to run. You can use this tier list as an idea on what should be your favorites. You get your 3 favorites that you get to choose if you see them no matter what. And just as a general guide of like what is good, what's bad, what are the threats, and the various logistics of the Pokemon you're choosing and the type that they are. Because in Ironmon, everything is randomized, the actual Pokemon itself doesn't matter. They're just a sprite, but the spread of the stats, or at least the total of the stats that you have, along with the typing of the Pokemon and the amount of moves that they learn is what really matters. So let's take a look at all of the Pokemon and see which ones are Omega S and which ones are garbage. So we'll go just from the beginning to the end here. I believe these are in no particular order, which will make it extra fun. So again, this is not going to be all Mons. This is going to be focusing on final evolutions with a couple of special cases. Starting off with Electrode, this is going to kind of give the template for everything today. The important things that you need to consider in Pokemon are the type, or at least in Ironmon, are the type, the BST total, and the moves that it learns. To give a quick summary of what all that means for the run, the typing, of course, is going to be what you're weak against, what you resist. Electric, obviously, resisting electric and only being weak to ground, right? Pretty good type. The BST stands for base stat total. Base stat total is basically at level 50 with no external factors, including EVs or IVs. Those are both factors that can affect your Pokemon's stats. With none of that into consideration, 480 is the total among all of Electrode's stats at level 50. So basically, in the dumbest terms, high BST means more stat point. The higher the BST, the higher likelihood your Pokemon has of being stronger because it has more stat points to distribute into various areas. Last, the amount of moves that it learns and when it learns those moves. That is immensely important in Ironmon. Moves are an immensely important part of winning an Ironmon run, as you may have seen in the other tier list. So let's jump in, and we gotta rate Electrode. Now, generally, there is a rule of thumb that 450 and lower is kind of not usable in Ironmon. I feel personally that like less than 500 is a little dicey, so that's why I feel a little weird about Electrode, especially as our first one in the list. Electrode is good typing. Electric is only weak to ground, which is really good. Having only one weakness is really strong. But 480 is a low-ish stat total. With 9 moves on his roster, that's pretty standard in Fire Red Leaf Green, so it learns a decent amount of moves. I feel comfortable throwing Electrode into the A tier. Are you considering stab potential too? That's a good... I didn't even consider... Yeah, I wasn't considering, but that's a really good point. The other factor that your typing gives is stab potential. So if you're a lightning type, you have potential to do extra damage with lightning moves. So if you're a very good offensive type, that actually does add some potential to your Pokemon. Lightning is a great offensive typing. If you get Stab Thunderbolt, you know, Thunderbolt being an S tier move, an Omega S tier move, you're in a really great position. Next up, we have Execute. Execute being a Pokemon that evolves with a Leaf Stone. Very rare to really find these Pokemon useful. I don't think any of the Stone evolutions or it's going to be rare for any of them to place in a high tier. But looking at these Stone evolutions, right? You get an Execute, and if you have a Leaf Stone, basically you've got a chance of getting a Sceptile 8.8, Grumpig, Meganium, Espeon, Gardevoir, Alakazam, Hypno, Bellossom, Xatu, Cacturne, and Venusaur, so on, so on. The list is massive due to the typings here that it can evolve into. With Execute in particular, it's, you know, a relatively low stat total, 325. It doesn't learn a lot of moves, Grass and Psychic leaves it open to a lot of weaknesses, especially a 4x bug weakness. Honestly, it's kind of garbage. As much as I love the eggs, even its evolutions, Grass is one of the weakest typings defensively. Very dangerous to run any grass type Pokemon in an Ironmon, period. On top of all that, they just don't have a lot of potential in and of themselves. And a lot of the evolutions for Execute actually don't learn moves after evolving. So that just kind of like ruins any potential that it has. And that leads us to Execute's dad, Executor. There is like so much risk in running this thing. Not only is it weak to, you know, Dark and to Ghost and to Bug by 4 times, but it also has the grass weaknesses of Ice and of Fire and Flying. Because of 520 BST, I want to put it in D, but because of the terrible typing and the only 2 learned moves, it's actually going to sit in the garbage as well. After that, we got Marowak. This is just off the bat a final evolution mon that has a BST of 425, incredibly low stat total. We've seen a very small handful of people walk away with a Kaizo Ironmon victory at a BST of 450. There is the rule that if your BST is under 400, you are allowed to abuse illegal abilities in Ironmon runs, like Pure Power and Hidden and Huge Power. Because Marowak is above that threshold, but below the trash threshold, it belongs in the garbage. And that's just that. It's just rough. Next up, Hitmonlee. Look at that kicky boy. This one's interesting. 11 moves in the roster at a 455 BST. Definitely on like the weakest side of anything that you want to see. But Fighting is a good offensive typing. If you're able to get Brick Break on this guy, Fighting is really strong offensively. I think D, it doesn't belong in the garbage because it is workable. You could absolutely win, but it's definitely not shining bright here. Hitmonchan, I believe, falls into the exact same category. It learns 10 moves, so 1 less move, but it does learn 3 at once at level 26. These two belong right next to each other because they are effectively the same Pokemon. Yeah, Lickitung, Lickitung. All right. Lickitung being below the 400 threshold does give it that just maybe possible chance that if you pull Pure Power with it, you are absolutely going to get a Sweetmon if it has the physical capabilities. Ultimately, that's so rare. It'll sit at the top of the garbage tier. After that, we have our big money maker, Caterpie. Pokemon number 10, Caterpie. It does not learn moves. It evolves at level 7 into Metapod. Caterpie, yes, I know what you're thinking. 195 stat total. Nothing to be too excited about, but there's something special about bugs in Kaizo Ironmon. I don't know what it is. There might be a legitimate piece coded into the algorithm that randomizes the game, but bugs get out. The bug is going into the D tier. All right, we got Wheezing up next. This is a beautiful mon. Looking at this, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 moves on the roster. Not as many as you want to see. The thing that's really beautiful about Wheezing is the typing. In Kaizo Ironmon, especially in Fire Red Leaf Green, recovery items are not only incredibly difficult to use, but difficult to come by. You're only allowed to use them in battle, and you got to get lucky enough to find them. As many of you know, poison types cannot be poisoned. The value you gain by simply being a poison type Pokemon is so massive, and 490 BST is really, really strong. Only 2 weaknesses as a poison, Psychic and Ground, which, to be fair, are both relatively strong types and have a lot of strong moves. It is sitting comfy in that A tier right next to my man. This next one, I don't even need to bring this one up. Rhydon is 4 times weak to grass. He's 4 times weak to water. It is trash. Next up, we've got Chansey, the friend-shaped egg. Now, the thing that makes Chansey good, and really, really good in my eyes, is that it has some evolutions. Ursaring, Kangaskhan, Miltank, Tauros, Snorlax. And with Chansey being a Pokemon who evolves via high friendship, If you get a Chansey early in the game from the lab or in a pivot, you can easily just run back and forth, farm that friendship stat up, get into one battle to evolve it, and then be guaranteed from that Mon a very high BST normal type Pokemon. And if it has good moves and a good nature, that can all carry over into the evolution. It's important to note that for anyone who doesn't know, the stat spread, the ability, those do not carry over when you evolve, because every Pokemon has their own different stat spread and has their own different ability. The things that carry over on evolution in Ironmon are your EVs, your IVs, your effort values, your individual values, or innate values. I don't know what it stands for. Your nature and your moves. Having to evolve it is a bit of a downside, but it's fun. I'm gonna put it in the B. Next up, we've got Kangaskhan. This is basically this is one of the possible targets for Chansey. 490 BST is a lot, just shy of that 500 mark, which is really comfortable, really good. But 490 is amazing. And normal typing, very good. One weakness, like I said, very good defensively. It's not anything special offensively, but you know, being only really being held back by Rock, Steel, and Ghost, it's pretty nice to have a normal typer. I think this belongs in the A tier, right next to Weezing and with Electrode. But anyway, we're moving on to the next one, Seaking. It is a water type, weak to grass and weak to electric. I mean, water type is okay in Gen 3 Ironmon, specifically because of the fact that the special and physical stat split for moves hasn't happened yet. Everything that it's weak to is special, and it's nice to have that, so that when you're running a Watermon, you're able to kind of think like, yeah, okay, if this thing has a really high special defense, then I cover all my super effective bases, which is nice. Seaking, of course, at 450 isn't going to really be able to beat out anything in the D tier. It's going to sit right next to the 455 punch and kick brother-sister combo right there. Up next, we've got Staryu. The reason I like it is because of how absolutely cranked this evolution list is. Melodic, Gyarados, Blastoise, Feraligatr, Lapras, Walrein, Vaporeon. It's not bad enough to be garbage, but it's going to sit in the D tier because of the fact that it can roll into something really fun. All right, next up, we've got Starmie. This is a weird one. Starmie is 520 BST. The Water Psychic expands its weakness table from 2 or 3 on either of these individual typings to 5. The thing that makes Starmie not an immediate S or A tier is the fact that it only learns the one move. I think Starmie is no higher than the C tier just from raw BST. Next up, we've got Mr. Crime. We've talked about the importance of moves in Ironmon. It's like the 3-circle Venn diagram of the perfect Ironmon. The overlap happens when you have good moves, good ability, good stats. And Mr. Mime learns 14 moves. But we're gonna put this thing in the C tier as well, above Starmie. The amount of moves it gets is incredible. The only downside is the 460 BST is a little bit lower. Just a little bit. Just the tiniest bit. Next up, Scyther. 500 BST. That is definitely on the higher end of potential Pokemon due to the fact that it wouldn't be able to evolve on its own. There's a setting that Ironmon enables that if a Pokemon would not evolve without trading or some other way that'd be impossible in the game, the randomizer will allow it. So Scyther evolves at level 30, and that's what makes it actually worse, in my opinion. The real thing is that if you are at level 30, you have made it past the first gym in the run. And if you've made it past the first gym in the run, you probably got a pretty sweet Mon. Because you are going to have that uncertainty between Brock and Misty's gym, it goes into the B tier for me. Our friendly little Electabuzz right here deserves to sit in the A tier just due to how strong the electric typing is. Now Magmar is an absolute G. There are so many good fire moves. I think out of like pound for pound, apart from normal, fire might have the highest amount of like decent high power fire moves, like high power moves. I think it sits in the high A tier. And another bonus, of course, of fire types, apart apart from very, very, very rare circumstances with certain ability interactions, are unburnable. Pinsir is a 500 BST bug, just like Scyther, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 moves in the roster. I feel comfortable putting Pinsir as our first Mon in that S tier, man. Next up, this Mon is almost effectively the same as Kangaskhan. Gyarados, the big dog. The weirdest thing about Gyarados is its typing. Water, flying. I don't love the fact that it's 4x weak to lightning, but I do love the fact that it's 540 BST. I think it would be a crime to not include Gyarados in the S tier at 540 BST. We've seen Gyarados win Ironmon runs many and many times. We've got Lapras. All right. 535 BST. I think Lapras is easily going to sit in the S tier. Eevee. I won't bother bringing up the stats. Eevee is a evolution slot machine with an easy jackpot, and that's gonna put it in the C tier for me, above the D's, because yes, Staryu has the same potential with its water stone to evolve into a ton of amazing stuff, but Eevee can accept 5 different stones. We are on to the 3 doggies. I believe they all learn moves at the same level, so let's go ahead and just get them out of the way because they all have the same kind of stat sheet. The moves, a good amount of them not learned very quickly. I'm gonna throw our first Omega S with Vaporeon. And I'm going to do the same with Jolteon. I've already talked plenty about how Electric is incredibly offensively and defensively in Ironmon. Jolteon is going to be sitting there in the Omega S. Flareon, I can't even say that I would include this less than Omega S as well, because the fire typing, you know, burn immunity is wonderful. Each of these things have different strengths and weaknesses. The Umbreon, being dark type, makes it immune to psychic. And then last, Espeon. These things all being at 525, being single typings, being 8 moves. They all belong in the Omega S. I think any one of these are a very, very valid high tier pick. Incredibly high tier pick. If it wasn't for Aerodactyl, it would be a damn shame to have because of Aerodactyl, Gen 1 fossil Pokemon have a chance at shining brightly. Rock, flying, we've got 515 BST with 7 moves. And that makes me want to bring it up right next to, but a little bit lower than Lapras in the S tier. Next up, we've got the Snoozoman, the sleepy guy. I love this guy. The amount of moves here, 13 moves on this roster with a 540 BST normal type. This is undisputably the king of the Omega S tier so far. After that, we are moving on to some Generation 2 Pokemon. Meganium coming first. Look at that. Look at that little dino. Grass's ass, guys. Tons of grass moves are illegal in Ironmon. Any move that steals health. Apart from the 525 BST, the grass typing makes me put this thing in the A tier. Yeah, I gotta move it even lower, honestly. Typhlosion, the next Mon coming up, that fire typing, 534 BST. That's enough for me to put it either in the top of the A or the bottom of the S. Man, with 535, I gotta put it at least bottom S. For Alligator is slightly less BST. I don't know why the difference exists here between the BSTs of these Mon. Water typing, as I have always said, is really nice because of the fact that it's only weak to special, so you have that benefit with it. I think that safe typing, only 2 weaknesses, and both of them being covered by the same stat, brings it right next to the other Titans up here in the S tier. I like Feraligatr. Next up, Crobat. Look at this guy. I love him. And unironically, I think this might be one of the strongest picks in Ironmon. So we've got 9 moves learned, 535 BST, immunity to poison, and no 4x weaknesses. I don't know if I like it more than Snorlax. I think that's just because of personal preference, and I could see this going either way. Up next, we've got a very, very well-loved Mon in Ampharos, the second highest apart from Jolteon electric Mon that you can use. 500 BST, 6 moves. Electabuzz sat in the A tier because of its 490 BST, 6 moves electric, and Ampharos is gonna be in the same region, just at the top, that extra 10 BST. If as much as it sounds like it might not, it does make a difference. So Politoed with 500 BST, the downside of course being just like Starmie, it's not learned learning a lot of moves. Upon getting further into this list, I am feeling that I would like to bring my 500 BST Evolutionmon into the B tier. All right, that brings our next serious Pokemon in, the Slow King. Strong BST. The typing, as we talked about with Starmie, does leave a lot of weaknesses open, but it is a lot of moves, and it's a pretty good BST. This is a comfy B tier for me. Girafarig, this is a mon I like talking about. The interesting things about Girafarig are all surround its typing combination. The normal completely gives it immunity to Ghost, which means we have gotten rid of one of our weaknesses, and Psychic resists fighting, which gets rid of another weakness, and that leaves it being only weak to Bug and to Dark, which have some strong moves but are relatively uncommon. So defensively, I like it. And offensively, I like it too. Normal and Psychic, both decently offensive. Of course, Psychic being a bit more of a heavy hitter, Normal just being a little bit more consistent. The downside is 455, the lowest of the acceptable BSTs. I do like it, and I think it has potential. I'm putting it in the C tier right next to Mr. Mime. Let's talk about Scizor. The 4x weakness to fire makes me unable to put it higher than B in my heart of hearts. If you get this thing with Flash Fire, dude, with fire immunity, you're schmiling. But after that, we've got a fun one, man. A mon who sat in my top 3 for quite some time. We've got Steelix. This thing learns 10 moves. 10 moves is a lot. 510 BST is a lot. It is immune to 2 separate types, electric and poison. It has 4 times resistance to rock, and then it has half resistance to bug, dark, dragon, flying, ghost, normal, psychic, and steel. The obvious downside comes from the 4 weaknesses that it does have. This thing is just so nice, man. Steelix for me, and I know this is heavily debated in the Ironmon community, but Steelix for me is an easy Omega S. Our next mon worth talking about is the good old Shuck. I think Shuck belongs in the A pretty easily. On the lower side due to the 5 moves, but I really like the Shuck. We've got Heracross up next. Heracross being another one of those 500 BST bugs, just like Pinsir. Another one who doesn't evolve, which we really like, but by being bug fighting, we now have a 4x weakness to flying. I don't feel comfortable putting it anywhere higher than the B tier. Moving on from there, we've got Ursaring. 8 moves on the roster, 500 on the BST. I'm actually willing to throw this thing into the S tier. I might reassess this and put it just at high A. I think for now, I'll leave it at high A. The Octillery is instead a great mon to talk about. What I like about Octillery is at 480 BST, it's pretty strong, decent typing, and it's only water, so you don't have to worry about the mixed typing there. I think it's fun. I don't think it's incredible. I think it's a solid high B for me at 480, maybe even a low A. God, what a cool Pokemon. Skarmory, dude. You're seeing it on the page, man. 2 weaknesses, electric and fire, both relatively strong, but again, steel types, immune to poison, massive strength there. Just because of how insanely good this typing is, this thing is at least in the A tier for me. I'm going to put it in the mid A's. Next up, Houndoom. This is someone I want to like more than I do. You know, in the same way that like Steelix has 4 weaknesses, it has so much more going for it than the Doomdog does. The Doomdog, I'm not trying to like talk down on it here because it is 500 BST. It does have 8 moves. I think it's very easily an A tier, but I want it to be S. I just don't think it is. Oh, my one true love though, the King. Who doesn't love the King? I don't need to go super in depth explaining this for you guys, but by being water and dragon, it has incredible offensive power. And at 540 BST, it's one of the strongest Pokemon you can get. The complete lack of weaknesses that it has just makes it Omega S. All right, Donphan, we've only got 6 moves on the roster, which makes me a little bit sad, but I think it sits kind of in the A because, you know, if you are able to pull Stab Earthquake, it's just so powerful, man. After that, we've got Porygon 2. Porygon 2 learns 8 moves, has 515 BST, one of the higher totals that you can get. And again, normal typing, incredibly stable, incredibly powerful. It's going in that higher side of the S tier. And now we move into the Stantler, who is my personal least favorite Pokemon. Not in Ironmon, but in general. I mean, just look at this thing. Its face looks like a pair of butt cheeks mid-excavation. I will be reasonable. I will at least put it in the C tier. I will not let my personal bias against this Pokemon stop me from giving you, the people, the objective facts. Miltank is going to go right next to Tauros. And now we move on to another beautiful Mon. Look at this. Oh my god, I can't even fathom how they created something so perfect, but they did. Our previous entry into the Omega S tier was the Snorlax, and you'll notice that Blissey, just like Snorlax, has 540 BST. I think you see where I'm going here, guys. Blissey, with a very stable typing and 10 moves with 540 BST, belongs right behind Snorlax. Snorlax, of course, learning more moves, getting a higher position. All right. Sceptile. Again, we put the Meganium into the B tier. Sceptile, because of the extra moves, is going to be just a little bit higher. Blaziken, however, is an absolute monster, dude. 11 moves, 530 BST, firefighting. It's got 2 really strong offensive typings. I think Blaziken deserves a spot in the S tier, which leads us to Swampert. This one is tricky because I'm going to have a bias here where I've had a Swampert who ran Earthquake and was an absolute monster. You've got 4 separate moves before level 20, and on top of all of that, man, it has only 1 weakness, but that weakness is a 4 times weakness to grass. As much as I want to love Swampert, I can't, in good consciousness, put it above the A tier. After that, we've got Gardevoir, 518 BST. A lot of moves, 3 of them before 20, and Psychic typing, just Psychic. This thing is an easy Omega S. After that, we've got another really strong Normalmon, Exploud. I think it stays in the A tier just because of the 10 moves and the normal typing being really good. Hariyama, kind of going to be in a similar boat. So 474, I don't think we've had any other pure fighting types really be that strong. No, this is a solid B tier. This man's is funny because, all right, let's get Aggron on the screen. He is a monster. He is a danger, but he's also in danger. 4 times weak to fighting and 4 times weak to ground. Now, at 530 BST, I can't justify putting him in the garbage or the D tier. That's too strong. But 2 4 times weaknesses, I am sorry, my friend. You're gonna sit into a C tier for me. All right, we've got Nidoqueen, Nidoking, both of these being high 495 BST Pokemon who only learn 2 moves. Poison Ground, you know, good types, but because they don't learn very many moves, they have to sit in the C tier. Next up, we've got Wailord, the Stonk Master himself. So Stonk's lot of moves, 500 BST, single water typing. This thing is, for me, it's either incredibly high A or low S. At 10 moves, I think it belongs in low S. Flygon. Ooh, we love Flygon. 520 BST. The thing I don't like about Flygon is it does have that 4 times weakness to ice. Because of that, it sits in the high A tier next to Dragonite, next to Swampert. You can win with it, but you're gonna need some real magic to make it happen. You know what I mean? Same thing coming up with this Altaria, but it's only 490 BST, 30 less. That's going to bring me down to the low Bs with it. Zangoose, I believe, is like right on the cusp of usable. I'll put it happily in the high D tier, right along with Seviper, who I believe shares a very similar stat spread on the poison typing. And I know a Seviper has one Ironmon, at least Kaizo Ironmon, but it is a game of chance, dude. We got Claydol up next. 500 BST, that's the number you like to see, but Ground Psychic invites a lot of weaknesses, which is a reason that I only want to throw it in high Bs. After that, we've got Cradily. Funny enough, this is like one of the grass types that I actually don't hate. The rock typing does a good job negating as much of the awfulness of grass as it can. This thing's going to be a low B for me because still it is grass. On the flip side of that, we've got our dude Armaldo. The Shuckle is bug rock as well and learns less moves. Yeah, just based off my Shuckle logic. He's a little weaker than Shuckle, but learns more moves. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put him up there. We're moving on to the beautiful Noodle. Look at that. Look at that beautiful mon. Oh, this is an Omega S. This is strictly better than Vaporeon. Just higher BST, same typing, and more moves on a more regular schedule. It's just a better Vaporeon. All right, we've got Glalie right here. 480 BST on Glalie with moves at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 moves. Ice type is just so bad defensively. Honestly, I might even just keep it high C. I would take all of these guys right here over a Glalie. All right, our next mon is Wailord. This thing is same typing as Lapras and a very similar BST. I think it belongs to sit really close by. Water Ice can be really powerful. Wailord can be really good. I think it's a strong S tier pick. Oh, not Wailord, sorry, Walrein. Up next, we have the evolutions of Clamperl. Huntail, both of these being 485 BST, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves a piece, I believe. Water type is good. 485 is a very decent BST. I'll throw him right next to the Octogussy. The Ninetales. Let's look at Ninetales. The not learning a move is like not his single move. I'll put it in mid C's along with the Niddos, because if it does have the moves or whatever, if you get lucky enough, you might have it. But we'll go ahead and do the starter trio right now for the beginning OG here. So here's Venusaur's full stat spread. We've got 525 BST. That poison typing I've been talking about all day, how valuable it is to have that poison typing because it gives you poison immunity. It goes just above Sceptile. Following that, we've got King Charizard. Now, the 4 times rock weakness, you hate to see it. If there is a typing to be 4x weak to, it is rock. I know I have been kind of rough with our 4x weakness Pokemon, but I think Charizard stands a little bit above the other ones because rock is the least offensive one. And then finally, Blastoise, our final of the starter evolutions, the Baja Blast himself. Pure water, 530, but way more moves than the Feraligatr got. This thing ends up entering the high S tier. Honestly, I don't know what I'm thinking, man. It's actually better than Vaporeon. A little bit worse than Melodic, but better than Vaporeon. Let's jump back into our friends here. Speaking of friends, we've got one of the greatest friends you can find, Golbat. Gengar and Chansey are the gold standard, and I think both of them deserve a place in the B tier. Golduck is a fun one. 6 moves is very low. We were stingy enough to throw Feraligatr to the bottom of S because of only 6 moves. After that, we've got Arcanine. Now, Arcanine is another one of these stone evolution Pokemon, so it only learns a single move, but it has the highest legally choosable BST. Raw fire type with a 555 BST. If by some crazy chance you get one that's good, then you've got a run on your hands. But the odds of that, man. We'll put him in the high Bs. Alakazam, baby. The 2 spoons. Alakazam, which was one of my greatest runs, was one of these Alakazams. Damn, dude. I like it a lot. 490 is a good BST. I think I'll put it just above. I'll put it right next to Weezing. Next up, Machamp. Probably the best single fighting type Pokemon you can get. Yeah, this thing is easily going to be in the top of the A tier. In fact, I might even bring it to the bottom of the S. I think Machamp has a lot of potential. I think it easily sits in the S tier of Pokemon here. We've got Tentacruel. Water, poison are its types, so its weaknesses right here. Built-in poison immunity, 515 BST. This thing is very easily an S tier, an Omega S tier for me. I can't tell you how much I believe poison immunity and burn immunity is valuable in this game. Speaking of burn immunity, our next mon is Rapidash. 500 BST with that many moves. Fire type and pretty good. Confident high A. I like it a lot. After that, we've got Dugong. If Lapras was an S tier, this thing is Lapras at home. I am going to put it just in the mid Bs because of that. All right, next up, Muck. Again, I have been talking about it all day, how much I think the poison typing is just God tier. I think S tier for Muck is fair. It's 10 more BST than Weezing, which I think is enough to bring it higher into that S tier. Now we have Gengar. I am a massive, massive fan of Gengar. I think this Pokemon belongs in everybody's top 3 if you're playing to win. And while it's at 500 BST and it doesn't necessarily rival some of the other Omega S's in stat total, I would legitimately say that Gengar takes either slot 1 or 2. Now, I'll explain my thought process because I know it's going to sound crazy. The Gangussy is thick. Being Ghost gives you immunity to fighting and to normal, and then being Poison gives you immunity to the status condition of being poisoned. Gengar being a Ghost is completely immune to self-destruct and explosion. And if you're a physical attacking Gengar, Counter will never be able to hurt you because, of course, you're a ghost. It's just so much potential on this thing, man. And I mean, the people aren't wrong. He has a dump truck. After that, we've got Hypno. I would put Hypno in like the mid Bs next to like Dugong and stuff. Last but not least, man, I don't know why we saved Kingler for the very end, but you know what? A little pinchy crab. Sure, dude. Let's do it. 475. We're going to put it next to Manectric, who's also 475. It's a solid B tier. Not bad, but not great. It looks like we've gone through all of them, so let's really quickly address our list and see how we feel about it. I feel pretty strong about my Omega S's. The big difference between the Omega S's and the regular S's are the S's are really good. The Omega S's are mon that are just massive, massive performers. They have really great stat totals. They learn a good amount of moves, and some of them just have like something special about them. You know, like the various poison mixes between Gengar and Tentacruel for the immunity there. The Kingdra, of course, being only one weakness. The Snorlax and Blissey being massive tanks of stats who just have so much moves to learn. Same with the Crobat with the poison immunity. Like the high A's, you know, we've got Pokemon who are really strong, who have just like are a skip away from jumping up to the S. Low moves on Ampharos, low moves on Electabuzz, lower-ish BST on some of these Mon. And then down here, yeah, we've got our 480 Water Psychics. Yeah, we jump into the rest of our 480s. I'm maybe a little biased on Exploud because I had a really good Exploud run, but I do think the normal typing with the 480 is a little bit more viable than maybe some of the other 480 typings because you really got to minimize those weaknesses at 480. The rest of this list I feel pretty solid with. I know that inside of each of these I can slide things around a little, but generally the higher they are, they're a little bit better. I feel confident that we've done a pretty good job with this list, so bravo to us. It only took us 2.5 hours. Jesus. Well, after what might be the longest session of a tier list we've done, I have ironed out how I feel about the run. And I know a lot of it is a little controversial. A lot of it is based off of the bias of my own experiences. I tried to be as objective as I could, but I couldn't help letting my high-performing runs kind of cloud my judgment in some areas. So if I had any big lapses of judgment where I did that, I need you, the YouTube comments, to keep me honest. Leave a comment. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel if you've been enjoying the videos. If you haven't, get the f out of here. I don't want it. All right. Until next time, in another video.